Alrighty, so it's 7 o'clock on Monday, November 7th, 2022, and I'll call the meeting to order. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, I will just note that Councillor Brody is not with us now as of yet, or he may not be. Okay, he's in the field. Unless the weather changes, he will be in the field. Before we get into the minutes of the previous meeting, I just want to say thank you to the folks that put on the Remembrance Day service in Kerwood yesterday. I'm not sure who all was involved, but I know that Dan Parker, our fire chief, led that from a staffing perspective, and I think everything went well, and it was a great attendance for that event. So the minutes of the previous meeting, and those were from October 17th, 2022. Mover and seconder for those. Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, so we're going to jump into the Committee of Adjustment. So we need to have a motion that Council convenes as a Committee of Adjustment for the purpose of hearing application for consent B12-2022 at 7:01. Okay, Councillor Clark and Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor, and that's carried. All right, so this is application for consent B12-2022. And before we get into that and I hand it over to Aaron, I just have to say the purpose of the following Committee of Adjustment and public meetings are to give the Committee of Adjustment and Council, as well as the general public, an opportunity to hear all interested parties with respect to the applications being heard this evening. And the public is advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record, available for full disclosure. And if a person or public body files an appeal of decision made this evening to the Ontario Land Tribunal without having made a written submission to the committee and or council, the tribunal may dismiss the appeal. And if you wish to be notified of the decision in writing, please submit a written request to the clerk. So this is for 590 2nd Street, and I think we have Brian here. Which seat do you want him to take over? Dan, can you shuffle them? Yeah, okay. So I'll have you come to the front here. And then I'm assuming you have you've gotten the report from Aaron, and I heard that you've had some conversations today as well. Yep. So I will hand it over to Aaron to go through the report. And then if there's anything you want to add, I'll have you push the button, it'll turn red, and the camera spins around to you, and then you'll be good to go. So Aaron.
Thank you, Chair. So the first application before committee this evening is for B12-2022, 590 2nd Street, or County Road 33. So the applicant is looking to separate the existing dwelling from the larger vacant parcel. The lots were previously separate but have merged due to common ownership, and so the applicant is looking to reestablish the previous lot lines. So the lots to be severed are proposed to be 1.16 hectares.
Aaron,
yes,
that's not the map you have shown is not the right one.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
That looks good.
Okay, sorry. I was expecting the first application to go first. I apologize. So the severed lot, being the residential portion, is proposed at 1.16 hectares, and the retained portion is proposed at 8.7 hectares in size. So the property itself is located on the south side of 2nd Street, just west of the intersection of 2nd Street and Hickory, which is also County Road 39. So the lot is in a regular shape and contains about 290 meters of frontage on Hickory Drive as well. So both roads are classified as arterial roads under the jurisdiction of the County of Middlesex, and the lands are privately serviced. So the lands proposed to be severed, being the residential portion, has the existing single detached dwelling, detached garage, and several small sheds. The lands also contain a barn, which is located southeast of the dwelling. There are two accesses from 2nd Street, one that serves the dwelling directly, and another that provides access to the field south of the residential use. A small portion of the lands to be severed is actually designated as residential area and zoned urban residential. The majority of the lands are actually designated natural environment area and zoned environmental protection. The lands to be retained, being the lowland section of the property, are currently vacant with no buildings or structures, and contain a large field and pasture land, which is approximately 6 hectares of significant woodlands and provincially significant wetlands. The lands to be retained are designated natural environment area and again, zoned environmental protection. So the application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. Hydro One provided no comments or provided no concerns with the application. Enbridge advised that they do have service lines in the area. If they are affected by the proposed severance, it will be the responsibility of the landowner to relocate the gas lines as necessary. The county engineer did provide several comments. First of all, and this sort of alludes to the piece where we had some additional discussions today. There was the requirement for land dedication along not only 2nd Street, but Hickory as well. Hickory is affected a little bit, but the majority of land dedication would be provided off of 2nd Street. So this provided a few concerns with the applicant, being that they actually had a septic installer come out and identify where the septic system for the residential dwelling was, and would actually be within the portion that would be dedicated to the county. So we have had an updated request from the county. They are waiving the land dedication across the severed portion, being the residential land, and are just requesting land dedication of up to 18 meters across the frontage of the retained portion. So I will also update my little location map here. So I'm actually recommending a slight shift in the severed lot this evening. So the applicant is proposing to sever this larger piece here, as the lot lines, you can tell, alluded to before. But the reason why I am recommending a smaller size this evening, number one, has to do with the official plan designation. So there's actually just a tiny portion up here that actually shows the residential designation and the urban residential zone. So there are provisions in the official plan that say sort of boundary lines between designations are somewhat objective. If they're not bound by a road or other topographical feature, it can, there's some, it'll be up to the discretion, I think, of council to determine where the boundary lines are. So it'd be my opinion that although it's just this tiny piece up here that is designated, in reality, we can count the residential dwelling as well as the lands to the south, which are used for accessory to the dwelling itself. However, I do have difficulty in saying that it makes this entire portion part of the residentially designated area. That goes hand in hand with the county engineer's request comments that there would be difficult access along Hickory. If this piece is severed, if the large piece is severed with no remnant piece on 2nd Street, Hickory that would then become the frontage, and then access into this parcel would be required. However, due to grade change, speed, and sort of orientation of the road, likely safe access onto this property would not be possible. So hand in hand with my analysis and his suggestion that 2nd Street remain the access into this land, I am proposing a smaller piece at the top. I'm also recommending that the barn itself stay with the larger piece of land, which, it doesn't serve the residential use. It would make more sense to be contained with the sort of agricultural retained piece down here. So I have spoken with the applicant about this. He is I believe, in agreement with this, and it makes the most sense in order to keep everything sort of functional for the retained piece. So a couple of additional requirements from the county engineer. Due to the 2nd Street access, he is also requiring a 1-foot reserve of land across the frontage of the retained piece on Hickory Drive. And that's just to remove legal access and just ensure that the access to the larger piece comes directly off of 2nd Street. And again, 18 meters of road widening across the frontage of the retained parcel on both 2nd and Hickory. The county safety and standards officer is requiring the larger parcel to be granted a 911 municipal 911 address, which I have added as a recommended condition of consent. The St. Clair Region Conservation Authority just identified all of the sort of natural heritage and natural hazard features on the property, but did advise that they don't have concerns with the severance, with the understanding that the zoning is in place and is not proposed to be changing. Strathroy Caradoc advised that the subject lands are on service, otherwise no concerns with the application, and I have not received any comment from the public. So I've gone through my analysis a little bit here. I am supportive of the severance on the basis that there are no changes to the existing designation and zoning of either lot. Due to significant natural heritage features on the proposed lands to be retained, the EP zone is appropriate and should not be revised to permit development in the future. The applicant has advised that they understand there is no opportunity to development and they intend to continue the use of the retained lot for existing agricultural uses. In addition, the applicant would be required to provide a survey plan demonstrating the proposed lot and land dedication to be reviewed and approved by the township prior to depositing at the land registry office. I've also added a number of other conditions that are standard for these types of severances. So overall, I am in support of the application, provided the the severed residential piece be revised, subject to the conditions in my report. I will say that the majority are standard, but I'll go through the ones that are specific to this application. Number 4, that the lands to be severed be reduced in size to approximately 63 meters of frontage along 2nd Street. Number 5, that the owner dedicate lands up to 18 meters from the center line of County Roads 33 and 39. I'm requesting to the committee this evening to amend this condition a little bit and say from the center line of County Roads 33 and 39 along the frontage of the retained lot only to the County of Middlesex for the purposes of road widening, if not already to that width. Number 6, that the owner dedicate 0.3 meter reserves to the County of Middlesex across the frontage of Hickory Drive. And number 7, that a municipal 911 address be provided to the retained lands in coordination with the County of Middlesex. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Brian, is there anything you'd like to add? You just push that button there. And then
It pretty much covers it. The initial intent of the application was because it was already a registered plan and it's a prior severance, we were hoping to just have an affirmation of that because of it had merged because of the amendments that were done a year and a half ago. Now, after the county brought in the road widening criteria, that changes everything because we have to do a reference plan and we also have to survey the property regardless. So at that point, working with Aaron, everybody gave and took a little bit and we came to something that we can all live with. At the end of the day, we'll have a 1.2 acre property that we can sell. It's unfortunate that we can't keep the 39 access. It's far safer than the 33 access because 2nd Street is down in a hole and yeah, you get swiped one of these days, but that's beside the point. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. And we have no intentions of developing the property. It can't be developed. We know that. It's the brothers just want to keep it for our use, so, and then sell that existing house.
okay. Is there anyone in the gallery wishing to speak to this application? Okay. Okay, perfect. Is there any questions or comments from the Committee of Adjustment? Okay, seeing none, so we have the recommendation in front of us, and that is. No, see, when I push it, it goes to them for some reason, and I don't know what's going on. Yeah, so, okay, go ahead, Councillor Clark.
Aaron, have you been to the property?
Through the chair to Councillor Clark, I have not been on the property itself, but I have done several drive-bys and I drive by it quite often.
Okay, yeah, I guess my only concern is that that may not be a safe exit point at the bottom of the hill on the retained portion, that it would make more sense to have an access point off at 39, but I'm not sure how flexible the county would be on that.
So Chris did provide a comment saying either they retain a portion off of 2nd Street, or they can have an engineer do some sort of study and determine where, if any, there would be a safe access point off of 39. So I mean, if that is something that the applicant wishes to pursue, that I guess that's an option, but Chris did say that he does not believe that that would be possible, and it would come at an expense, surely.
Thanks, Aaron. Through the mayor to Brian, you have an engineer's report now, and was that provided to Aaron?
No, we don't have an engineer's report. That
Okay.
there has been a farm access there for the last, who knows, 50 years. Like but if he wants us to get an engineer to bring it up to standards, then that's a waste of time.
Okay.
But it is a safer access.
Yeah,
We
for
use
sure.
that one right presently more than the other one because it's right by it's by the jog there where there's a,
Yeah, I see it.
and you can see that you can pull up there, you can see down the bridgeway clearly, and then you can see this traffic lights. You can wait there, especially if you're taking a load of wood or hay out of the field. You don't want to be coming out of that gully without a flag man, because that'll make you pucker up pretty good when you see some flying over the hill. So it's
I don't know, Aaron, that Hickory is that dangerous, because I think you have the stoplight there. So people are either going to stop, or they have stopped, or they're just starting up from the light. So I just don't, could you take a second look at that, or is it hard and fast and that's the way it is?
Through the chair to Councilmember Clark, I mean, if the applicant wishes to request a deferral this evening, so we can look into that further. Again, it will be subject to Chris Trainey's comments as the county engineer, and he did indicate to me that he thought it would not be something that an engineer could adequately demonstrate, but that's certainly, up to yourselves and council.
okay. Forget.
All right, I enjoy the consistency of the family. That's very good. That's good to see. That was good. Okay, so we have the recommendation in front of us with the amendment, I believe, on number five. So everything we've talked about is of what Aaron was suggesting. So do we have a mover and seconder for that recommendation? Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councillor Clark. All those in favor? And that's carried. All right.
I would just like to say that working with Aaron and staff, and even Chris at the county as well, like, we all are coming from a different perspective, and I'm glad that we could all work together and compromise and come up with a solution we can all live with. So that's refreshing. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And you guys can either stick around. It's our last council meeting of the term, or it's okay if you just want to take off. Just whatever you guys want to do. There we go. Okay, take care. Alrighty, so we will now just have a motion to adjourn the committee of adjustment at 7:20. Okay, Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Clark, all those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, and then we'll jump into our public meeting, and that is a motion to convene in a public meeting to hear application for zoning bylaw amendment Z08-2021 at 7:21. Okay, Councillor McKinnon, Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, and I see we have Ashley Podolinsky on the screen with us. Are you able to hear us? See us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to hand it over to Aaron to go through the report, and then we'll go back to you.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So the next application, we are looking for a rezoning of a property that council will be familiar with. It was just subject to a surplus farm dwelling severance not too long ago. So the applicant is requesting a rezoning of the severed lands from the general agriculture to a site-specific surplus dwelling zone in order to recognize the residential use, to restrict agricultural uses on the land, and recognize the size of the existing accessory structures. So the property is 2988 Mulla Ferry Drive, and the severed piece was approximately 0.7 hectares in size. The application is also proposing to amend the zoning of the lot to be retained from the general agriculture zone to the agriculture only zone to prohibit new residential uses on the land. So this is very straightforward, and you've seen this quite a few times. The only reason we are looking for a site-specific zone this evening is to recognize the existing accessory buildings, which will be severed along with the dwelling itself. We do have a maximum ground floor area of 75 square meters in the SD zone, and that's for accessory structures. So we are looking for an increase to recognize 2 of the existing structures themselves. So I am satisfied that the application is appropriate for both the proposed severed lot and the retained severed lot. I have drafted an implementing bylaw this evening for council's consideration. The application was circulated to the prescribed agencies as well as surrounding property owners. The St. Clair Region Conservation Authority advised of no concerns. Enbridge gave us their standard comments that there are service lines in the area, which were also included on the consent application, I believe, and no comments have been received by the public. So my recommendation this evening is for approval, and further that council proceed with all 3 readings of the implementing bylaw, as we have received a copy of the registered plan, and that has been included in my bylaw. Thank you, Mayor Smith.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Ashley, is there anything you'd like to add at all?
No, Erin covered it all. Like she mentioned, it's part of the conditions for consent to do the rezoning. Yeah, so I don't have any additional comments, but I'm free to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there any questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, mover and seconder for the recommendation. Okay, Councillor McKinnon and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
And we just need to have a motion that council adjourn the public meeting at 7:24 and convene in regular meeting of council. Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councillor Clark, all those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, and I think that's the end of our planning stuff. So Aaron, if you'd like to stick around, you're more than welcome to, but if not, we understand. Okay, take care. Okay, correspondence. So our upcoming conferences, seminars, and meetings. The inaugural meeting for the next council is on Monday, November 21st at 7 o'clock, followed by Monday, December 12th. The Roma conference is being held on January 22nd to 24th at the Sheridan Centre Hotel in Toronto. The Ontario Good Roads annual conference, or it's now just called Good Roads, is being held on April 16th to April 19th, and that's at the Fairmont Royal York in Toronto. Recommended readings. The first one is from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And it's a letter from Minister Clark, More Homes Built Faster Act, and that's from October 25th. Item number 2 is the Asaba Bayfield Conservation Authority news release response to Bill 23. Items 3 and 4 from the County of Middlesex, and it's the County Council highlights. Item number 5 is the Asaba Bayfield Conservation Authority board meeting minutes from September 15th, as well as from October 13th. And then the Blue Water Recycling Association Board of Directors meetings highlights, and that's from October 20th. And then last, number 8 is the Federal Minister of Agriculture, Agri-Food Canada / Ontario Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, Ontario Wildlife Damage Compensation Program. That was a lot. And then the last one, which is action required, it is a resolution from the municipality of Wawa, and it's opposing to Strong Mayors Act. Okay, any comments on that one? No. All right, well, that was easy. We'll have a motion to receive and file items CC1 through to 9. Okay, Councillor Clark, Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. So we'll get into staff reports, and the first one is the Cuddy Drain accept request and appointment of an engineer, and I'll hand this one over to Morgan before it goes over to Andrew. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, Andrew, I just want to preface this one a little bit. As council knows, Cuddy Drain runs or meanders through Center Road or runs parallel. When we look at drain reconstruction projects like this, it can be quite expensive onto landowners. We are also understanding that there are some servicing agreement disputes in the area, so this could cause some potential headaches for landowners along Center Road. So I just wanted to note that we are aware of some of the potential challenges that might come forward. So we want to make sure that we keep our eyes and ears open, listen to folks along Center Road, and respond accordingly. So we might have to host a couple information sessions for the public to really understand, what we're trying to do here, which is to look at the drain and realign it or reconstruct it in a way that allows for better growth along Center Road, including opportunity. So better land use, planning and opportunity for property owners. So I just wanted to say that before we got into Andrew's report, that there are some challenges along Center Road. This is, of course, one of them. We do want to resolve the stormwater management plan along Center Road, and this is one way to do that. So Andrew, I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you, Morgan. So just some background on the Cuddy Drain. It was originally constructed under the provisions of the Drainage Act in 1952. It was at this point, most of the residential and the commercial development was further to the south in the town of Strathroy. As a result, the drain was designed mainly for agricultural drainage. The standard discharge rate was much lower than it is today. So basically, most farms had very little drainage of their own. Since the original construction, there has been some improvements carried out on the Cuddy Drain. For example, in 1972, there was an extension of the drain downstream from the west side of Center Road into the town of Strathroy. In 1984, a portion was reconstructed, running along Center Road and crossing Center Road as well as 2nd Street. In 1988, the drain was extended yet again further into Strathroy for improved outlet. Most recently, in 2016, the drain was relocated for the construction of the Rona building. So it was moved along the property line, and a large spillway was added as a result. In 2013, Street & Associates was appointed under Section 76 of the Drainage Act to update the assessment schedule, as there were significant property line and land use changes since 1952. It was becoming clearer that it was no longer fair to use the old report for maintenance. During this project, there were inquiries by the township to the Spreet office for an estimated cost to do a reconstruction of a large part of the drain. As a result, Spreet & Associates recognized Despite the improvements to the drain over the years, the drain was still under capacity for the development that had occurred and the continued development that is happening right now. Spreet and Associates recommended that that the firm be appointed under 78 of the Drainage Act to reconstruct the drain. However, much deliberation, it seems that the project was to update the assessment schedule was ended. Further to that, Spreet's office or any other engineer was not appointed to reconstruct the drain. Through written correspondence, it seems verbal conversations indicated the cost was determined to be prohibitive. Analysis of this, similar to other municipalities in Ontario, when commercial development straddles boundaries, growth tends to build on growth. Growth creates growth. This appears to be the case for Center Road, as it has experienced increased development due to the access to 402 and proximity to Strathroy. This growth is particularly significant to Adelaide Metcalfe because it's the main area of intense development. As we all know, most of the rest of Adelaide Metcalfe is agriculture and some residential throughout. Although the development has been constant and increasing, the properties tend to be smaller, commercial projects that lack the ability to take the cost of a large comprehensive stormwater master plan. The township does not possess the resources to purchase land and construct the infrastructure as needed. As a result, administration has already started the process of looking for grants and alternative solutions to solving the issues, and generally thinking outside of the box of the standard municipal drainage project because of the conditions that we are dealing with. Regardless of the difficulties associated with the area, the municipality is in a position now to move forward, encourage further growth for Adelaide Metcalfe. Given Spreet and Associates has a long history in this area, it is reasonable that they are appointed to this project. So that's where I would recommend that council appoint Spreet and Associates to write a report to reconstruct the Cuddy drain on the request received from the owner of Lot 21, concession to former Adelaide in Adelaide Metcalfe.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Is there any questions or comments at all from members of council? No. Councillor McKinnon.
Through you, Mayor Smith, to our drainage superintendent. It makes sense to me that Spreets be appointed because of their knowledge of the area. So I'm in favor, although I'm hoping that the cost will come in a little more reasonable than some of the Spreets costs have. So bear that in mind and ask Mike to keep that in mind.
Okay, excellent comments. And I think we're all looking forward to having this drain request happen. It's long overdue. Okay, is there any mover and seconder for the recommendation? Okay, Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Clark, all those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the next section is the Johnny Pereira show. So we're going to hand it over to Johnny for the operating budget to actual October 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the council, we have in front of us the October 2022 operating budget actual reports. Overall spending and revenue collection to date looks to be on pace with the approved budget. One note is the tree program. That program is now complete for 2022. All trees were delivered to those who were successful with the program. The recommendation is to receive the report as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, sorry, we're trying to figure out these microphones. They're not in the right spots. Is there any questions or comments at all on that report? Okay, Councillor Clark.
The only comment I have is that I really appreciate the structure around how you present, like how we're seeing the budget and where everything lines up. And I thank you very much for continuing to do that.
Okay, so we have the recommendation that is the operating budget actual report for October 2022 be received for information. Okay, Councillor Clark and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. The next is the reserve and reserve fund policy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the council. The reserve and reserve funds are designated revenues for the purpose that extend beyond the current fiscal year, like a type of savings account. They are an integral part of the municipal budget planning process and a long-term financial plan that contributes to the township's sound financial position. The primary purposes are adherence to statutory requirements, promotion of financial stability and flexibility, provision for major capital expenditures, smooth expenditures which would otherwise cause fluctuations in the operating budget, and take advantage of financial opportunities that may arise. This policy has been drafted with significant detail to provide guidance to administration, the establishment, targeted levels, and the use of the township's reserves and reserve funds. They are guiding principles that provide an overview of the purpose, intended use, and classification of reserves. In addition, there is a summary of staff's roles and responsibilities and the various reporting that will be provided to council. As shown in the policy, there are a number of new reserves and reserve funds, many of which we've talked about throughout the year. This will not only provide a means of financial stability, but also provide increased transparency to council and the community as year-over-year carry forwards will be clearly shown and set aside for its intended use as documented in the policy. Aside from the life cycle management reserve fund, which is built off the new asset management plan, many of these reserves are built to minimize fluctuations within the operating budget and limit budgeted spending contingencies. For example, by having a winter maintenance reserve fund, we're able to put year-end surplus aside to fund extreme weather events, instead of budgeting a large figure for those what-if scenarios year after year and increasing the budget when it may not be needed. This simple practice allows us to make better use of the community's tax dollars. Lastly, in building the new reserve and reserve fund policies, there are a number of older reserve accounts that I'm recommending we consolidate, as the asset management plan has changed the way we would account for these items. This policy is a document that will continue to evolve as the financial landscape changes, as it will be reviewed on an annual basis. The recommendation is to approve the policy as presented. I know this was a lengthy document to review, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. Is there any questions at all? There's a lot of information, but I think it was laid out very well. Yeah. Yes, yeah. Okay, with that, there's the long recommendation. I'm not going to read that. Everybody did that. So mover and seconder. Councillor Clark and Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor, and that's carried. And then back over to Johnny for the investment policy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the council. The purpose of an investment policy is to provide an investment framework that allows the township to invest any excess cash resources within statutory limitations, to protect and preserve capital, to maintain solvency and liquidity, to meet ongoing financial requirements, and to earn the highest rate of return possible. Cash available for investments are generated from funds held in reserves, reserve funds, and trust funds, plus the excess of cash receipts over cash disbursements at any given time during the year. With the rising costs we are seeing, the investment policy is a tool we can utilize to maximize the return on investments and increase our overall revenues. By having completed an asset management plan and forecasting our future capital, we will better understand our future cash flows and make better investment decisions to maximize the return on our savings. The township will do this without compromising the objectives of adhering to the statutory requirements, preservation of capital, and maintaining liquidity to meet financial commitments. Although important, maximizing the rate of return ranks lower than ensuring the safety of the township funds. Investments are generally limited to relatively low risk securities in anticipation of earning a fair return relative to the assumed risks. GICs are a prime example that adheres to this framework, and probably something we'll look into for township funds. As outlined in the policy, an annual investment report will be brought to council to highlight our investments in the overall yearly returns. The recommendation is to approve the policy as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, is there any questions at all? Seeing none, so this one is that council approve the investment policy and the policy be incorporated into the corporate policies manual. Mover and seconder. Councillor Clark and Deputy Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. The next is the development charge interest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the council. The purpose of this development charge interest policy is to establish a framework for determining the interest rate that can be applied to development charges as permitted under section 26(1) and 26(2) of the Development Charge Act. It was recommended by Watson and Associates that this be developed as a separate policy instead of including it within the actual development charge bylaw. That allows us to change or adjust the policy as we see fit down the road if the recommended framework is not sufficient. We can easily change the policy instead of actually having to pull and adjust the bylaw. As indicated in the report under Bill 108 and Bill 138, there were changes that created a timing difference in the collection of development charges, mainly the installment provision for not-for-profit rental housing and institutional developments. To reduce this impact, staff are recommending a development charge interest policy, which is included within the report. The policy defines interest rates to be the non-residential construction price index published by Statistics Canada. This is the common rate used by many municipalities and would be best to keep pace with the changes in the DC fees, which occur at the beginning of each year, which also use the same indexing. The recommendation is to approve the policy as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, is there any questions on this one? Okay, mover and seconder for the recommendation. Okay, Councillor McKinnon, Deputy Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. And the next one, the development charge bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the council. So development charges are used to pay for capital projects that are needed to meet the increased demand for services and infrastructure that is generated by growth. The more people mean more vehicles on our roads and more demands for fire services and parks and recreation, for example. Development charges are fees charged for new development that offsets the increased costs. Without development charges, the bill for increasing or improving services will get added to the property taxes of current residents. A notice was provided on the township website on September the 7th and included in the local paper to notify that the township is in the process of considering implementing development charges and invited all interested parties to attend the public meeting. The public meeting was held on October the 17th, where Watson and Associates presented the development charge background study. A comment was received by the clerk noting concerns with the effective date. It was noted that some members of the community might be finishing off their application for a building permit and did not anticipate the new development charge being introduced. After taking the public feedback into consideration and discussing this with staff and our chief building official, we are recommending that the effective date be pushed from the day of passing this bylaw to make the effective date January 1st, 2023. So approximately 2 months from now. By delaying this to January, the township would also align with the annual indexing as outlined in the bylaw and provide a clean and efficient implementation at the start of the calendar year. Staff believe that the January 1st date would provide those who are truly close to submitting an opportunity to submit before the charges are implemented. The overall goal of development charges is to ensure growth pays for growth, but pushing out the date further would really contradict the overall goal of development charges and would increase the financial impact on the township and the taxpayer. Just one other note, there is a new bill coming through that will impact development charges. So there's some exemptions and phase-ins Since this bill has not reached royal assent, we have been advised by our consultants, Watson and Associates, to move forward. This would not affect the passing of this bylaw. More information will come with the proposed changes. The recommendation is to approve the development charge bylaw and enact the implementing bylaw as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. Is there any questions at all? Okay, Councillor McKinnon?
Through you, Mayor Curtis, to Johnny. Is it Bill 23 that will have the impact?
I believe so, yes.
That's where they freeze it to the developers and cut out the time as well. If you don't meet the time commitment, then you start to see a lowering of the cost. Is that correct?
That's all through
No.
the mayor, that's under the site plan control rules that were previously already implemented. The Development Charges Act, they're looking at a phased in 5-year approach where it's something like 80%, 85, 90%, 95 to 100 the 5th year. Yeah, it's there's a lot of legislation coming through.
Councillor Clark?
Yes, I've heard from a couple of different builders and they're concerned about the short runway of it being implemented on January the 1st. So I'm speaking up on their behalf. And they, different ones were suggesting a 6 to 9 month window so that it could either be September 30th or so it would be, you could do your annual indexing and break it down by quarter somehow in your calculation. So that's what I would like to see on their behalf is to push it 6 to 9 months.
Okay, any thoughts on changing that start date from members of council? No. Okay, so we do have the recommendation in front of us, and that is the council approve the development charge bylaw and enact the implementing bylaw as presented, and that would have the start date of January 1st, 2023. Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Hendricks, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. And that is it from Johnny. We're going to move into the sidewalk and fire hall winter maintenance requests for quotation results, and that's for 2022 all the way to 2025. And Coulter isn't here, so I'll hand it over to Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to council. Someone gave Coulter the week off. I'm not sure who, but I hope he's enjoying his time out there. So as council knows, we have a number of sidewalk segments throughout the township that require winter maintenance. Through some community feedback and council direction, there are also some sidewalk segments that are closed from November 1st to April 15th. We also have that don't require winter maintenance. We also have a fire hall that has or that requires a specific level of service because they are an emergency service that could be responding at really any time. So we have to make sure that they're taken care of. So Coulter undertook a procurement opportunity or a procurement process. The results are within the report. We did see a decrease in the price per snow event this time around, which was nice. Essentially, just looking for council's approval of the recommendation of the report.
Okay, any questions at all? Mover and seconder. Okay, Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Clark. All those in favor, and that's carried. All right, so we'll get to other business, and I see that there's a presentation to Mayor Smith from Councillor Clark. Is there anything else for other business before we go on?
I could show off some park pictures if you like.
That'd be amazing. So we'll do that.
So through the mayor to council, just wanted to show some progress pictures of Kerwood Park. Before it was looking like a pretty dusty, chaotic place. But essentially this is looking south, I believe, at the primary baseball diamond. On the left there, you'll see the new pad for the pickleball court. Here is the asphalt that was laid for our accessible parking spots. So you'll see that it butts up right against that basketball court. We'll have rubber parking curbs right there to prevent anybody from actually driving up on the basketball court, but allowing people to be able to use the basketball court to move around as well. Here is that. Oh yeah, for sure.
The other thing I just want to note with that photo, so as you can see, the lines, they're not just a single line, they kind of loop around. If anybody goes to Costco, I call those Costco parking spots. And then that way there's plenty of room between each car to allow people to get their strollers out of their vehicles or their soccer bags, baseball bags, whatever it is. There's a lot more room for people to get out. And the photo doesn't show it, but it is asphalt all the way to those trees. So that whole section there from that you see all the way over. So it's not just those 3 spots.
It'll be cleaned off when it's ready and primed for use. And that, I have to thank Mayor Smith for the Costco parking stall lines, because that was not a staff call. That was a Mayor Smith call. He was really thinking about how people are going to use the park, and it was a great opportunity to make some adjustments there. In between the 2 pavilions is this concrete pad. We heard a lot about people moving in between the 2 pavilions. So council made a decision to have some concrete laid here. Just gives people some extra space. Oh, and in the background, right around that tree, you'll see that we did remove those dead shrubs or trees. We'll have a sidewalks that's connecting from Kerwood Road into that pavilion as well. This is just a look at the walking path around the playground. That concrete pad there is for a bench. And that's just another look at the walking path around the park equipment. A couple concrete pads there for some benches as well. And another look. And that's it.
It was delayed. Oh, you're good.
Okay. So what's remaining is essentially we have our roads crew working on what do you call those things that you sit on them? Sorry, I haven't been sleeping very well. Benches. No, the rafters. The rafters. The rafters. The bleachers. That's it. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Marianne. So we got the guys working on repainting the bleachers or sandblasting them, getting rid of the rust, putting new boards on and everything else. So we tried to find ways to get the guys involved in keeping our costs low, but also staying busy at the park. So that's pretty much it.
Okay. I guess so. Or Marianne, do you have anything like to say at all? I think this is the time that the kind of the last moments that we have to say things around the horseshoe.
Yeah, I thought about something to say, and I don't know that I can really add anything. I've been honored to serve the township for 2 terms, and I wish the next council lots of luck. And just remember, there's a whole half of the township north of Napperton that you need to look at.
It's been a pleasure working with you over the last 2 terms, and you will always be known as the last deputy mayor in Adelaide Metcalfe. So you can take that title as the last deputy mayor. So it's been an honor and a privilege working with you over the last 8 years, and a lot of hard work has been put into it. So thank you.
I guess I'm up. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Curtis, for everything you've done for all of Adelaide Metcalfe. It's bittersweet that you're moving on, and I know I have big shoes to fill, literally and figuratively, that's for sure. I think you can be so proud that you were the youngest councillor ever, you were the youngest mayor ever, and you were the youngest warden ever at Middlesex County. And you served on numerous committees at the county level. You always represented Adelaide Metcalfe with integrity and dignity. You always took your job serious. You were prepared and you've always conducted a very crisp meeting, and I can only hope to do half as good as you. There's a lot of pressure. Yeah, yeah. So without further ado, we've got this fancy. Oh, I tried to put a bow on it, but I don't know.
looks good.
So there you go, Curtis. Congratulations. Joe Bridget.
So I did put a little some ink on some paper. So if you could just bear with me and I'll try to get through this. So over the past 6 months, I've thought a lot about what I wanted to say at my last council meeting. And it turns out I've done a lot of thinking and reminiscing, but not a lot of jotting down. So I'll try to keep this as short as I can because I wrote it today. I just want to start off with some personal thank yous. First and foremost, I want to thank my family, which has changed a lot since 2010. My mom, my dad, my sisters and their families, my grandparents, my wife, Bridget, which is here today, and my daughter, Isla. Thank you so much for your support. I also want to thank the 445 people that voted me in 2010 that started my time on council at the young age of 21. To my teacher at Fanshawe College, Mr. Laverne Kirkness, for indicating that land use planning is an asset on municipal council and encouraged me to run. Thank you to everyone that encouraged me and supported me to run in 2014 and again for re-election in 2018 for mayor, and especially Marguerite Walker. Thank you to my county council colleagues, council and staff, and particularly those that elected me as warden in 2019. And a huge thank you to the entire Adelaide Metcalfe team, council, staff, residents, and taxpayers. It has been an absolute honor and privilege to represent you. So now I thought I'd share some fun facts. So my first council meeting was on December 6, 2010, where my first motion I moved was to have stop signs installed within the village of Kerwood. Yes, in 2010, there were not any stop signs within the village of Kerwood. I've only missed 1.5 council meetings during my time on council, and one of those was when I was in New Zealand and I watched the council meeting in the airport. And the second one was sometime during my warden's term, and Mary Ann chaired half of that meeting. My background is in planning, and during my 12 years on council, I somehow have not been part of a 5-year official plan review. And I have signed 527, soon to be 534 bylaws. Some of the highlights between that first meeting in 2010 until this one tonight includes the era of wind turbine meetings, negotiating the funding agreement for the Kerwood Fire Department pumper tanker, official plan amendment number 10, which permitted the ability to sever surplus farm dwellings, attending Adelaide WG McDonald School, whether it was to drop off smile cookies to every student, attending their concerts, and even holding a council meeting in their school gym. Updating and refreshing our township logo and funding the new township branding signs throughout the township from a private donation through the Mayor for Mayors program. Being elected as warden and having the opportunity to attend the MISA BC conference with the County Director of IT Services. Seeing the 402 digital signs installed almost 2 years after almost 2 years of resolutions and delegations with the provincial ministers. Investing in our urban areas with new sidewalks and benches. And after years and years of discussion, finally breaking ground and soon to be complete the Kerwood Park improvements. And it was only fitting, Morgan, that you posted those photos. And how about that time we went virtual for over a year? And my biggest highlight and accomplishment is building our amazing team that we have now, and something I couldn't have done without the support of this current council. So thank you, Mary Ann and Sue and Betty Ann, and also Mike when he hopefully watches this. This term has been very tough, but we all know the township is in good hands for years to come. Now, there's a couple things that I had hoped that could have been accomplished and part of the highlights during my time on council, and that list isn't too long, but I just want to mention two. The first one is the completion and the grand opening of the Holiday Inn Express and the signing of a reasonable servicing agreement between Stratford-Caradoc and Adelaide Metcalfe that will benefit the entire region. I also have a list of personal highlights, but I've narrowed it down to 2, but I don't know the entire story of the black goat in Kerwood named Curtis, so I'll skip over that one. But the biggest highlight was just after the results came in. The biggest personal highlight was just after the results came in for the 2014 election. And the local radio station personality named Bridget Johnson wanted to do an interview with the newly elected mayor. And I think now is the best time and place to reply to Betty Ann's email that she sent me on August 8th that said, "What a shocker. I'm assuming you have something really great that you'll be taking on when you gave up the opportunity to run for mayor." So Betty Ann, here it is. I know there's been a lot of talk and a lot of rumors out there about why I withdrew my name from this election and what I'm going to be doing next. And I am beyond thrilled to share with you that I have been appointed by the Attorney General to be one of the newest members of the Ontario Land Tribunal. So thank you so much. And it's been an absolute honor and privilege to represent Adelaide Metcalfe for the past 12 years. So
Just to you, Curtis, I've sat on quite a few councils and you took us from the Stone Age into the 20th century. And as Councillor Clark, the soon-to-be Mayor Clark, stated, you ran a crisp meeting, you always came prepared, and we've always appreciated everything you've done. So I'll leave it at that. I'm sorry to see you go, but happy to see you in such a prestigious job that you will have. So
thank you. All right, is there anything else before we get to bylaws? Glad I was able to make it through that. It didn't happen earlier today. All right, so if there is nothing else, we will get into our bylaws, and we need a motion that bylaw number 56 of 2022, the reserve and reserve fund policy, bylaw number 57 of 2022, development charges, bylaw number 58 of 2022, zoning bylaw amendment for Corneliusons, bylaw number 59 of 2022, agreement for winter maintenance, bylaw number 60 of 2022, appoint bylaw enforcement officer, and then bylaw number 61 of 2022, appoint animal control officer, bylaw number 61 of 2022, confirming the November 7th council meeting, receive the first, second, and final reading. Moved by Deputy Mayor Hendrick, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? And that's carried. And if that is everything, we're going to have a motion to adjourn at 8:03. And if I could, I would like to move that. And Deputy Mayor Hendricks will be seconding that. All those in favor? Opposed?